This video is an introduction to Adobe Photoshop for beginners. To begin, you'll want to open the correct version of Photoshop. You have two of them on your desktop, so which one is the right one? The one that has this logo is the correct version. The other one is a light version of Photoshop, and we can't do everything in there that we'll want to do. Next, you'll want to open a picture. Go up to the top, click on File, then choose Open, not Open As, just Open. You can choose a sample picture or you can choose one of your own photographs. It doesn't matter at this point. And say Open. Now, on the left side of your screen, this area is called your toolbox or your tools. Mine looks a little different because I've got two rows and yours might be stretched all down in one long row, but essentially it's the same. These are your tools that you'll use to edit in Photoshop. So for example, this one looks like a paintbrush. If I hover, it tells me it is indeed the brush tool. So I can click on that if I want, and I can paint on my picture. At the bottom of your toolbox, you have your color swatches. Right now I have white as my foreground color and white as my background color. If I want to set them to black and white, there's an easy way to do that by clicking there. Or if I want to quickly switch between the two, I can click here. Or if I want to change my color, I can click on the box and pick a new foreground color. Now, at the top of your screen, this is called your menu bar, and it should look familiar. It has a lot of the same stuff other programs have, such as File, where you might open things or save them. Edit has some new things to Photoshop, but also Copy and Paste are in there, just like they are in other programs. Filter is one that we'll try out in a little bit. These are some fun ways to edit your picture, and so on. There's a lot of stuff up here that we can use. On the middle of your screen, this part right here, this is what we call our canvas. That's where we're working currently. So right now it's our picture. On the right side of your screen, these are your palettes. There are a lot of different palettes available, and the ones that you're seeing on my screen might not be the exact ones that you're seeing on your screen, but you can always change them. The ones that we use a lot are the Layers palette right here, and the Adjustments palette right here. And you might be seeing both of them at the same time, and that's totally fine. If one of them ever disappears and you can't figure out where it went, we can go up to Window, and these are all of your palettes and toolbars that you can bring back up. So if your Layers palette were to disappear, we can bring it back up by making sure there's a check here. Now at the bottom of your screen on the right side, near your Layers palette, you will see a black and white circle. It's half and half. This is your new Adjustment Layer button. There is a lot of good stuff in this button, so let's click it and take a peek. So this is where we can do a lot of different kinds of editing. We see black and white in there, contrast, brightness. We could even make a solid color layer. So now I have a red layer totally covering up my picture. Let's make one more. This is an exposure adjustment layer. And a lot of times adjustment layers will have these things called sliders. We can move them to change the picture. So if I'm going to adjust, let's say, the exposure here, to the right is brightening and to the left is darkening. Let's just do that. To get back to my Layers palette, I can click on it. So now you will notice that in my Layers palette, I have three layers: Background, Color Fill 1, and Exposure 1. And the way that layers work is they are stacked on top of one another. So we can't see my background picture anymore because it's covered up with a red layer and a layer that made everything bright. On the left side, you'll see these little eyes. This is your visibility, and that means can I see it or can't I? So let's say I want to turn this off. Now it goes back to the original red. I could turn this off, and there's my original picture. I can also change how these are stacked. Maybe I want to move the red up to the top. I can grab it, pull it up. Notice that black bar that just popped up above the top layer, and I can let go. And now they're stacked differently, which means that the red is on top, then the exposure layer, and then the background. What does that mean? Well, if I turn my color off, my red color, now I still have this exposure layer, and as you remember, we decided to brighten. So now instead of brightening the red, it's brightening this winter scene. So here's the before and after. So it gives you a lot of possibilities on how you can arrange things here. But if you ever can't see something, it's probably because there's another layer on top of it. Let's say I decide that I don't need this red layer anymore. Down in the bottom, you have a little trash can. And you can drag things to the trash can to delete them. Maybe I don't want this either. I can drag that down and delete it. Now what if I just deleted that and I want it back? I want to undo what I just did. We can use a keyboard shortcut that is actually in a lot of different programs. Control-Z will undo, so that will bring that back. And again, if I change my mind and I decide, no, I don't want it after all, I can undo again. Or if I'm using my paintbrush and I'm painting around and I decide that I don't like that, I can Control-Z to undo it. Now let's say I want to zoom in and see this in a little more detail. On your mouse, you have a scroll wheel, and we can zoom in with that and zoom out. On the keyboard, you'll notice you have a key called F12. Hitting F12 brings your picture all the way back to how it started. So if you're messing around in Photoshop and trying new things, but you want to get back to the original, you can hit F12. So let's do some edits here. And I want to bring it all the way back to the original. I hit F12, and it takes all of that away in one step. And finally, let's try something that's just kind of fun. If you click on the filter menu and we go down, you have a lot of different filters to choose from. You can also choose the filter gallery, which encompasses all of them. Let's click there. So the filter gallery opens up, and I realize you can't see the whole thing here. I'll try to move it in. And let's zoom this back. In each of these folders, there are different effects. So let's try colored pencil, film grain, rough pastels. And in each effect, you can move the sliders around to adjust how it's working. So maybe I want to make the stroke of that brush stroke a little bit longer. Let's see. Adjust the relief maybe. This one's called watercolor. So maybe those shadows are too intense. I want to back them off or increase that intensity. Let's try another one. Here's one that makes it look like glass. So right now it's a frosted glass. We can also do glass blocks. How big are those blocks would be our scaling, so you can always move this around. And then if it's something that you're happy with, you can click OK. Sometimes it takes a little bit for it to process. This one went pretty quick, and it applied that effect. If I don't like it, I can hit F12 to bring it back to the original, or Control-Z to just undo that very last step. So that gives you a little tour of Photoshop. Hopefully some of those are things that you can try out today and just kind of explore. It is really the best way to learn about Photoshop is use the internet as a resource, find tutorials, and just explore. Try things out.